We're out here in Santa Clara, Utah, checking out this historic marker about Fort Santa Clara. It says that as winter gave way to spring in 1855, 12 missionaries were sent to southern Utah by Brigham Young to colonize this region. Fearing an attack by Indians, they began the ambitious project of building a fort. Their energies were initially directed at hauling stone, which was plentiful nearby. Local Indians, whom they trained and who were willing to help in exchange for food, assisted them. As soon as enough stone had been gathered, the work on Fort Santa Clara began in earnest. 4 stonemasons from Cedar City directed the work, which took approximately 3 weeks to complete. While inspecting the fort during one of his visits south, Mormon Leader Brigham Young pronounced it the best fort in the territory. Because of the efforts of the missionaries, there was a great peace among everyone who lived in the area. The fort was never attacked by Indians. The fort became the focal point for the Swiss settlers who arrived in November of 1861. The following is a quote from Ira Hatch, one of the Indian missionaries. He said, "On Christmas Day of 1861, it started to rain. We were known to have a skiff of snow about this time of year, but this year it rained, and it rained for about a month and a half. The ground became completely saturated, and the small creeks feeding the Santa Clara became streams. The Santa Clara became a torrent. Some small trees and other debris washed down from above, backed up the Santa Clara, and during the night of February 4th, 1862, the Santa Clara ran over its banks and started entering the fort from the north gate. Sarah and I awoke with water in our cabin. We rushed out into the night in our bedclothes to warn others. By then the water was washing away our cabin on the southwest corner of the fort. The women and children were carried to safety. 200 bushels of the Indians' wheat was carried from the northwest cabin to safety before that wall collapsed. We were all exhausted from the effort. Sarah and I lost everything we had except for my horse and saddle. We rushed out into the night without taking time to dress. Many miraculous events took place that night. It was dark and raining. The fort was washing away. Wheat was saved, children led and carried to safety. Some were able to save some valuables, but most was lost. But God was good to them. Not one life was taken. At conference in March of 1862, Jacob Hamblin was called to be the new president of the Indian Mission. With the importance of his new position and the disaster of losing the fort in the flood, Jacob started building a new home. Most of Jacob's garden area and orchard by the fort were destroyed, so he started again. The stone from the north wall of the fort was used in building the structure, and the Swiss people used the rest, so the last of the fort wall disappeared. Today, in modern times, within the walls of some of the homes in the community, these rock walls still stand as a shelter to the inhabitants of this beautiful city of Santa Clara. Jacob Hamblin's home is now a registered historic site, open for public visits, and it is a reminder of the courage of those who fought nature and made this part of the world their garden. A little bit on how the fort was built. A single community cabin was a starting point for the fort. The fort was to be 100 feet long on each side, with stone walls 12 feet high and about 2 feet thick. The plan called for 7 cabins on each side of the fort. Each cabin was about 12.5 feet wide and 20 feet deep, and had 1 door and 1 window. Stone fireplaces placed in the center back wall of each cabin provided a good portion of the outside fort wall. The inside cabin walls were of logs, except for the end cabins, which had 2 walls of rock. The cabin roofs were supported on logs set into the rock on one end and on log walls on the inside of the fort. Protective gun ports were built into the outside of the rock walls. On the east and west side of the fort, defenders would lie on the rooftops to fire from the gun ports. Wooden ladders gave access to the raised platforms on the north and south sides. The main gate faced south. A smaller cattle gate was built in the center of the north wall. Entrance into the fort was gained by 2 doors on the south side, which faced the road.